So I just watched on DVR the latest episode of Dark Side of the Ring on Johnny Canine, also known as Bruiser Bedlam, which was called Biker's Bomb in Belgium, if you will. And I will say that it is an intriguing story. Obviously, they got several people that worked with him to talk to, and and find out more about him as a wrestler, as a person, as well as they talked to some people that were involved in a lot of the activity that he did outside of wrestling. That pretty much he just could not escape. He could not get away from, and it's like no matter how much he tried to get away from that lifestyle, he just couldn't, and he would always fall back on that lifestyle or fall back on it in some capacity. And yeah, this the story on Bruiser Bedlam, Johnny Canine, is, like I said, a really intriguing one, because it touches upon when he, first of all, he had a very rough childhood. His family, from what we understand, was poor. They didn't have much money. The father, during Christmas time or the holidays, would basically get drunk, and he would, abuse the mother, abuse the kids, try to chase after them with a broom and everything. And he would have to, that being Johnny, would have to go under his bed and hold on to his bed right in the middle, so that the broom, when his father would try to hit him with it, the bristles and all that would not hit him, because he was small at that time. And it just really, because of that kind of that lifestyle growing up, is what really affected him as he got older. But yeah, the episode really touched upon a lot of things about him that a lot of us didn't even know about. I mean, because here's the thing: a lot of us knew about him. We'll put it this way: I think a lot of us knew about him, but barely, because of Smoky Mountain Wrestling and the fact that when you read the magazines like Pro Wrestling Illustrated, or you would read magazines like something like Wrestling Insider or whatever it was, because there were several wrestling magazines out there. He would be like one of the names that would pop up when it came to association with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And you would see images of him, and you'd be like, okay, this guy looks like a pretty badass dude. I don't want to mess with him. And you obviously saw this guy thinking, man, he could be something in WWE or WWF at the time. Little did we know, though, and they touched upon this right off the bat, he was in WWF, but he was in there as a local job guy. Like anytime they came to the Ontario area or something like that, or they came into the region that was close to where he was, they would call upon him and others to go in there and job for the talent that was the bigger names, like a Sam Houston, a Hacksaw Jim Duggan, a Randy Savage, which is ironic because Randy would actually put him over in '94 and basically early 94, late '93, early '94, before Randy went to Randy went to WCW. Randy was still part of WWF, so he went in there as a favor, to Jim Cornette, and Randy was the one that, according to Jim, said, hey, I'm only here for one appearance, let me put your guy over, and he did, which, according to Jim, really shocked him, like, huh, what? He couldn't believe it. But yeah, it was, like I said, it's an intriguing episode that, touches upon a guy that obviously you could tell had all the potential in the world to be a big name in the business if a company like WWF or WCW would have picked him up, but he never got that chance because he was always obviously looked at as a local independent wrestler. And they did touch upon this when he left WWF, after being a jobber a lot, mostly when they would come into the area. And he would go to the independent scene like ICW and other places, and he would wrestle different talents. He'd be a main event guy. It was on the independents that he met Scott D'Amore and everything. It's also an independent show where Jim Cornette discovered him. and everything. I think they said it was a NCW event or something like that. He went. That's when Jim Cornette discovered them at that event. He talks about Scott D'Amore talked about one time after him and K9 wrestled each other, that of course the payout at the time, as a wrestler, wasn't checks or direct deposits or anything. It was cash in an envelope. So basically, because they were riding together, Scott D'Amore opened up his envelope, was not happy about what he saw. K9 noticed this and said, "Did he short you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then K9, quicker than D'Amore can even stop him, gets out of the car, goes back into the building where the event was, holds up the promoter, points to D'Amore, who's coming in trying to chase after him, and he says, basically he's threatening the guy, hey, you pay this guy what he's owed, don't you dare short him. And Scott did get what he wanted, or did get what he was owed from the promoter, as K9 looked at it. And unfortunately, though, the downside was D'Amore and Johnny K9 were never booked by that promoter again, because it's like that promoter. Because obviously, I don't blame that promoter, because if I'm gonna, pay out a guy, and I'm like, I want to, in my opinion, kind of be like, I'll pay him what I believe he should be paid and everything, right? If I know I'm gonna have to deal with someone like that again, I'm not gonna bring him in. But despite how he went about it, K9 did stand up for his buddy, his friend, because he felt, look, we had a great match. Why would you do this? He just dealt. K9, from what I could tell, did what he felt, in his personal opinion, was the right thing to do. And it's like, basically that was I think the first time that D'Amore pretty much realized there might be more to Johnny than he let on, because even in between wrestling, I think even before that, Johnny ended up in prison. That's where he got his tattoo on his belly. The crew tattoo, the touch of the crew or something like that. And it was like, I think that was the first time, as I mentioned, that he saw that side of Johnny. And they also mentioned that in between, his job stint with WWF and other promotions like NWA, WCW, and several others, that in between that and, I think even go back and forth in prison or jail, whatever the case may be, he built himself up so that the next time you saw him, if you knew him, he wasn't the same Johnny K9. He was bigger, stronger, if you will. And that's the look that got Jim Cornette's attention. Jim Cornette basically was like, "Ooh, this guy looks like somebody I can get over in Smoky Mountain." And that's what happened, because as I mentioned earlier, Jim saw him at the event, at that independent NCW event, and said, "Hey, would you like to come in?" The guy's like, and Johnny's like, "Sure, no problem. I have no problem with that." But he knew, I can't just have this guy Johnny K9. I need a name that's a little bit more threatening, that will get him over as a badass heel, a monster heel. And they came up with Bruiser Bedlam. And the rest is history as far as that is concerned. Now, again, they touched upon his career. They touched upon the time he had in Smoky Mountain, going over Randy Savage, going over Bullet Bob Armstrong, and basically also talking about how Smoky Mountain was a territory, one of the last of the dying territories, to where you had, to where basically the idea, basically the idea was to, get that territory noticed, you had to have established names, but you also had to have up-and-comers. And Bruiser kind of fell into that category of an up-and-comer, but someone that could, really stand out and get people's attention to watch the Smoky Mountain product. But yeah, basically he didn't last too long in Smoky Mountain, and then he went to Independence again. According to his widow, he just wasn't happy when he ended up doing that. He ended up going back on the Independence and all that. And that's when basically what he was, dealing with outside of wrestling was really starting to take, main priority in his life. That's when, he started hanging out and associating himself more so with these biker gangs in Hamilton, Ontario, than he normally had in the past. And one of them was the Satan Choice, which I guess is the Hells Angels equivalent up in Canada or something like that. Very, very dangerous, biker group from what they described to. I mean, they even talked to Mark Callos, who was a former member of that group. And he basically said, look, once you're in there, once you become part of that, it's like your life's going to change for, however long you're in it. And obviously he got out, but, he knows from experience that your life's going to be a little bit more different unless you turn it around. And Johnny went from being like an enforcer, like for like some mafia-like families or crime-like families, to try, as well as an enforcer for the Satan Choice biker gang, to wanting to be a leader. And he got that opportunity when they decided to, open up a chapter of that in Hamilton, and he became the lead guy. They touched upon the fact that he and the biker gang would associate with another biker gang. And what was it, Saldre or something, Sandre, I think. Hold on, let me check it out. Hold on. Let me see here so I can get it right. Let me see if I can get it right here. Let's see. Okay, Sudbury. Basically, they got in contact, or they came in connection with the Sudbury chapter of the Satan's Choice, and basically one of the guys he got associated with was a guy by the name, I'm trying to see here, Michael Dubai. And the Michael guy that was part of that group, part of the Sudbury group, was looked at as the most dangerous. And Johnny's, was like, okay, obviously he trusted him. He thought he could trust him. Because what happened is, one day they're in the area, they decided to go to an adult entertainment facility, a strip club, which is ironic because a strip club is where he's met his wife. But they decided to go there, but the thing is they can't go inside if they're wearing their colors. So they have to take their colors off. And from what they said is Johnny was like, nope, I'm not doing that. We're going to have our colors on, and we're going to go in there, and we're going to have a good time. Unfortunately, that backfired, and there was a stare-off with the Sudbury police after the officer said, not officer, but the owner of the club said, you got to leave, and they wouldn't, and then the cops came. So they basically planned to blow up the strip club out of protest. They're like, okay, you don't want us here? Fine. You want to, basically, I wouldn't say discriminate, but basically, I guess you could say discriminate against those that wear colors and all that. Okay, fine, no problem. We'll make you pay. And obviously the plan was to blow up the strip club. However, plans changed unbeknownst to Johnny, because the Michael Dubuque guy that was looked at, as I said, as the most dangerous, as they talked about here, as the most dangerous member of the group at that time, decided, you know what, the strip club, we're going to spare. We're going to go after the police station. And that's what happened. And Johnny didn't know until he got arrested. And then that's when he admitted, look, the plan was for the bomb to go to the club and blow that up, not the police station. So obviously after confessing that, getting the intel they needed out of him, because they were also like tracking, the police and all that, because they talked to one of the retired police officers or detectives that was on this case undercover and all that, as well as a former journalist that was covering it. And basically, Johnny, after he gave him the, admitted what the bomb was originally meant to be for, and and getting the intel they needed out of him, because they had somebody that knew how to do it, Johnny was kicked out. He was kicked out of the group. And this is after, they raided not only the clubhouse, the headquarters that Johnny had for the Satan's Choice in Hamilton, but they also busted into his house while him and his wife were sleeping to arrest him. And it just spiraled downhill from there. It just spiraled downhill from there to where he spent 33 months in jail. His wife divorced him, and and everything. She thought, okay, I gotta go, I gotta get out of here. and she tried to go to Vancouver. That, she tried to go to Vancouver. I think it was after the first or second arrest or something like that. And I think it was the first one. She had to go to Vancouver, start her life over again, because she was being told that there was a hit, and the hit was obviously out by the Subdairy, Satan's Choice, and Hamilton Satan's Choice, but mainly the Satan's Choice biker gang, because of what he had done, because of him being a snitch. And so basically when he got arrested and everything, I think it was a second time or something like that or whatever, and I think it was for a murder that they couldn't hold him against. Where he served, I think that was it was the second arrest, where they couldn't, really hold him against in anything. She divorced him. She went to Vancouver to start over. He got out, he followed her there, and, instead of being like, I got to get a restraining order, she was happy to see him because, as, as we could see when they talked to her here, even now, she was madly in love with him. It's like, despite his choices and despite her disagreements with his choices, as they would show in the dramatizations, Johnny, was, basically, she was putty in his hands, pretty much. She was putty in his hands, and even to this day, she's putty in his hands. So basically, her love for him is unyielding, if you will. So, anyway, long story short, they end up getting remarried and everything. He's like, okay, what do I do for money? They say, she suggests try the movie industry, which he did. They show a highlight of him from appearing in the CW show Reaper, which I don't know if anybody knows about that show, but they showed him appearing there. And they didn't show any other gigs that he did, but she said he was having fun. But then, of course, old habits are hard to break, and he started to fall back onto those old habits. He went and he got hooked up with a United Nations gang. He got, into weed, where he would spray coke and, other substance on it to try to basically make some money. And she said he would come back with 20, 30 grand. And that wasn't just in the cocaine or the weed, but that was money-wise. He would come back with 20 to 30 grand. And unfortunately, that caught up to him to where he got arrested, basically once again. And she knew that this was going to be the last time she would see him pretty much alive. Like, pretty much be the last time she sees him as a free man and everything. Although, from what, his widow was saying, and her name is Tracy, what she was saying is that the plan obviously was he was going to serve his sentence. He would be released to a safe house or some kind of, I think it was a safe house or a house, something like that, where he would spend time there for 6 months and then he'd be able to go back home to her. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And what happened in the end was he passed away. And his death, even to this day, is looked at for, in speculation. As to, exactly what happened. Because nobody knows what happened. Some, Mark Carlos, the former member of the biker gang that Johnny was part of, they tried to lead, feels that it might have been a hot shot, like somebody basically poisoned him. If you will, give him some good stuff, and off he went. So, they could believe it might have been a hit job. Who knows? It could have been natural causes. They don't know. And they didn't really specifically say what it was, in this episode. So it's still up for speculation. And the murder for a lawyer and her husband that he was arrested for, along with another guy that got released because, this was a murder that took place years earlier, and he and this other guy got arrested for it, but they didn't hold him for too long because there was no substantial evidence to work with, and this still isn't, because that murder case is still, opened up right now. It's still, wide open for them to try to figure out, okay, what happened here. And now they can't really get like a true lead potentially, because part of that, lead, or part of that potential, finding out the truth is gone from this world. He's gone from this world. And, yeah, it was, yeah, like I said, that final arrest that he went through, as I'm trying to make sure everything is here. Yeah, it wasn't a safe house. It was a halfway house. But yeah, basically, basically he was like, what I'm trying to say is, basically, it was just one of those situations to where, with that in the murder case, basically is what is it? Let me see here. Let me see. I'm trying to make sure I get this right here. Basically, the murder that he was charged with or accused of was of Lynn and Fred Gilbank. Lynn Gilbank, she was a lawyer, and the reason why he was accused of it was because there was something that she knew of that could put her client in danger. And he was accused along with this other guy of causing the murder. But again, there was no substantial evidence years later when they made the arrest to press against him or this other dude that were being accused, because so much time had passed. They didn't know whether or not they were connected or they weren't, all because of his connection with another family as an enforcer before he became part of the Satan's Choice, stuff like that. It's just one of those situations to where now, after he passed and the case is still open, they're going to have to try harder to figure out what happened, because part of that potential answer that they need is, like I said, no longer part of this world. Anyway, overall, this episode, when they touched upon Johnny and his career in the ring and outside of the ring, it's one of those episodes that it may not be the most interesting at times, but once you get into it, once you watch it, it really surprises you of how wrestling sometimes financially back then and even today, depending on how you make a living in professional wrestling, doesn't pay as much, and you have to fall back on something that you may not want to fall back on. In fact, the Mark Callows guy says that if he could go back and talk to Johnny, he would say, "Don't do this. Go be a husband, be a wrestler, do whatever else. Don't go into this." So, yeah, overall, it is an interesting episode. They like I said, they talked to a lot of people. The former journalist that followed this story, the former police investigator that was part of the undercover and everything. They talked to Lance Storm. They talked to Jericho. They talked to Jim Cornette. They talked to a few people, not many. And again, it's an episode that it's interesting. It's a really interesting take on how much of basically of someone that had so much potential, to be potentially a big star in the business, let his lifestyle outside of it and those that he associated outside of it kind of bring him down to the point that when he tried to get away from it, he couldn't, because he would fall back on it, because I guess old habits are hard to break, or old lifestyles are hard to change, if you know what I mean. So yeah, if you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. It's probably not going to be one of the more viewed ones they have, because again, as they said at the beginning, he was mostly utilized in companies like WWF, NWA, WCW, AWA, I would assume, as a job guy. But then in other places like ICW and CWA and all the other independent territories at the time, he was looked at as a bigger deal, especially when he built himself up. And then that really got him noticed by Jim Cornette and Smokey Mountain. So, yeah, if you're interested in it, I say check it out. It's on demand right now on Vice's on demand channel. I'm pretty sure people have put it up already here on YouTube. But yeah, check it out if you want to. It's really intriguing to see, the story about somebody that, many of us may have not known about, that had the potential to, be a bigger star elsewhere, falling from grace because of what he associated himself with outside of the ring. So yeah, check it out if you want to. Next week they're going to talk about Luna Vachon, and then I'm assuming the following week is going to be about XPW. So be on the lookout for those. Luna, I think, is going to be an interesting one because I've been when Luna showed up in WWF and WCW, I was already a big time fan, so I know who Luna Vachon is. I know who she is. So they're going to be talking about her next week, and then XPW, I'm assuming, the following week, and then they're going to close out the season with the steroids trial. But anyway, though, guys, if you want to check it out, go ahead. And that's all I'm going to say on it. So until next time, till later, I should say, comment down below, live chat during the video, like the video, check me out at BW Rose's Discussions at all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora, in which this should be on there as well eventually later on, the audio podcast version of it, as well as check me out at Patreon at BW Roses. Help me support my brand and channel there with a $1 tier or $3 tier. $3 tier gets you not just the recognition and shout out $1 due, or the $1 tier does, but it also gets you exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. As well as check me out at BWOs on Vimeo for content you can't get here because of copyright blockage or something like that. So anyway, guys, that's just my review. Oh, that's my review, I should say, on the latest episode of Dark Side of the Ring on Johnny Canine, Bikers, Bombs, and Bedlam. Let me know what your thoughts are. I do apologize if I seem a little hyped up a little bit. I had 3 cups of coffee this morning. I know that's a lot, but hey, I felt like drinking it, need to keep going. And again, let me know what your thoughts are, and I will talk to y'all later.